From the vast array of characters that populate the Naruto universe, Kakashi Hatake emerges as the epitome of well-written and well-crafted storytelling and character development. An enigmatic combination of competence, aloofness, and mystery gives Kakashi one of the most likable, relatable, and interesting personality blends in all of fiction. Not only that, Kakashi's journey throughout the entire Naruto series showcases very well the remarkable growth, complexity, and depth that his character experiences, and this remarkable combination is second to none. So, in this narrative and character analysis, we will delve into the reasons why Kakashi Hatake, in my opinion, stands alone as the best written character in the Naruto series. In the early stages of the series, when we're first introduced to Kakashi, he automatically piques our interest because he wears a mask and covers his left eye with his headband, and this combination gives an automatic air of mystery around Kakashi's character. But then you find out he has sort of an aloof personality, and he's set as the power ceiling early in the series. So this blend of mystery, competence, and aloofness automatically gives the audience the impression that this is a character that we would like to know more about. Then, with the revealing of this backstory, he becomes a more relatable and tragic character that we can all begin to relate to on a more personal level. With the loss of Rin and Obito, along with the loss of his sensei Minato Namikaze, we all can sort of relate to him in the sense that we all experience loss in our lives. And it also gives us the impression that Kakashi not only is one of the strongest characters in the series in terms of his physical might and capability, but also emotionally. So even in the early stages of the series, this initial arc establishes Kakashi's emotional depth and sets the stage for future eventual growth. But the combination of competence, aloofness, and enigmatic personality isn't enough to make the perfectly written character. There's also the aspect of what they do for the story, and with Kakashi, one of the main things is his role as mentor and teacher to Naruto, Sasuke, and Sakura. His guidance and tutelage not only shape the young ninjas' skills, but also their moral compasses to a certain degree. Kakashi's approach to teaching balances strict discipline with genuine care, creating a nuanced dynamic between him and his students. Through these interactions, the audience witnesses Kakashi's wisdom, adaptability, and dedication to his role as a sensei, as well as the moral compass that he's developed through the tragedies that we're introduced to later in the story. So not only are we introduced to the idea that he has a tragic backstory that we can relate to, we are also shown how he impacts the world around him despite the negative things that have happened in his past, and this leads to sort of an inspirational type feeling for the audience. A lot of people seem to think that Kakashi was not a good teacher, nor did he teach his students much of anything, but this is just blatantly incorrect. Not only did he establish in them the value of teamwork, which is a constant theme throughout the series, he also taught them the basics of ninjutsu, and even allowed for Naruto and Sasuke to specifically use their skills to individualize their power sets. This is most prevalent whenever we see him teach Sasuke how to use the Chidori and Naruto how to use the Rasen Shuriken. Introducing them to these specific things actually opens up so many doors for these characters that a lot of people seem to misunderstand. Sasuke goes on to basically form his entire power set around this. I mean, we see him use Chidori Stream, Chidori Sharp Spear, even his Indra's Arrow is based on the lightning release that Kakashi taught him he has an affinity for. And for Naruto, I mean, there are memes that go around about him just using Rasengan after Rasengan and having no other answer, but a lot of it is Rasen Shurikens, and the Rasen Shuriken would not have been possible for him to learn without Kakashi teaching him how to utilize his massive chakra reserves and his ability to use hundreds and thousands of shadow clones in order to jumpstart his training. So, Kakashi is an integral piece to the development of the two main characters in the series, but that's not it. Another key characteristic of Kakashi's character is burdening the weight of responsibility, not only over his team in Part 1 and Part 2, but also just as, arguably, the strongest shinobi in the village. In Part 1, we get to see Kakashi face off against powerful opponents, but the biggest thing in terms of his responsibility comes down to Team 7. We see him have deep emotional conversations with all of the members of Team 7 at different points in time. The one that sticks out the most to me, though, is when Sasuke is getting ready to leave the village, and Kakashi pins him against the tree with the wires and has a heart-to-heart with him where he reveals his past trauma to Sasuke and teaches him that there is no reason for him to seek revenge, and at the end of the day, He was correct, and I believe that by the end of the series, Sasuke realizes this, although it is Naruto who eventually gets through to him. But this moment not only allows for Sasuke to see that what he's doing may not be correct, even though he does end up leaving and seeking power, it also illustrates that Kakashi not only has had these immensely painful backstory moments, but also that he is utilizing them in order to try to make Sasuke not go down a path that he himself could have went down before. The parallels between Kakashi and Sasuke, especially early on, is one of the key aspects to this character dynamic. We get the picture that Sasuke is what could have happened to Kakashi had he just abandoned the values that his teacher had taught him. But because Sasuke fell into the curse of hatred, something that was inevitable to happen, Kakashi was not able to save him, which is another thing that Kakashi bears the burden of. Again, Kakashi's teachings to Team 7 are super important, and whenever he faces off against Sasuke during the 5 Kage Summit, we get to see the pain in his heart for what he believes failing his student led to. But we also get to see that Kakashi takes up the role of a leader in the village in the sense that he takes on some of the most powerful opponents that the village ever has to face. From Hidan and Kakuzu all the way to Pain, we see Kakashi face off against some of the strongest opponents in the entire series. And even though a lot of the time he fights outside of his weight class or has to protect those around him and fights at a handicap, like he did in both of those situations, Kakashi stands tall as one of the bravest and most courageous characters in the series, burdening the weight of responsibility of the power that he wields. Throughout all of this, the narrative deftly explores the internal struggles Kakashi faces as he grapples with the weight of leadership. His commitment to his comrades and his village is unwavering, even if it means making personal sacrifices. This is no more clear than it is in his battle against Pain. Not only does Kakashi put his life on the line by battling somebody he clearly knows that he is outmatched against, but he sacrifices that life, laying it down in order to save the village. Whenever he uses the last bit of his chakra to warp away the missile heading towards Choji, he does it knowing that he is going to die from this. But he knows that the information Choji has is ultimately going to be crucial in bringing down this new enemy, and that it was. Naruto uses this information throughout his battle with Pain in order to gain an advantage, and even though he is eventually taken down and has to have sort of a mom-dad moment in the Chibaku Tensei, Naruto would have stood zero chance without the information that Kakashi got to him. So this illustrates two main things. Number one, Kakashi is a selfless, brave, and courageous individual that is willing to sacrifice his own life for the greater good. But number two, he believes in his comrades, the village and Naruto in particular, to take down a threat that he himself could not take down. Despite always being one of the strongest characters in the series, he understands that the most important thing is doing his job so that other people can take care of the things that he can't. And that is the signature of a true leader. And one of the other signatures of a true leader is the power of redemption. The idea that whenever you fail, you stand back up and you keep trying again. And this is also one of the key characteristics of his character throughout the series. One of the most compelling aspects of Kakashi's journey as a character is his journey of redemption. Despite his past failures and personal losses, he finds the strength to rise above his mistakes and evolve into a better person and leader. He also takes his failures and learns from them in a way that a lot of people don't. A prime example of this is when he fights off against the 30% Itachi clone. He develops a way to get around his powerful genjutsu that even surprises the likes of Itachi, but that's not the only time that this comes to play. One of the central themes of his character is obviously the lesson that he was taught by Obito right before Obito died, and he carries that on to not only teach his students, but also hold true in his own life whenever he is combating opponents that are far greater than he is. This comes into play at the very end of the series when they're fighting against Kaguya. Kakashi knows that even though he just got a massive power-up, he cannot do this on his own. So he is the one who devises the plan to take Kaguya down. He is the one who Hagoromo praises as having a plan that is the work of the gods. And this wouldn't be possible without that central theme that Obito taught him so long ago of friendship, teamwork, and the ability to rise above oneself by relying on the strength of those around them. This central theme is one of the things that allows not only Kakashi, but also the other characters in the series that he directly impacts to overcome their own limitations and take on challenges that they otherwise couldn't take on as their own. The narrative skillfully portrays Kakashi's transformation as he learns to forgive himself and seek redemption for his perceived shortcomings. The exploration of his character arc showcases the complexity of human nature and the power of personal growth. This journey of personal development for Kakashi, I believe, is highlighted better than anyone else in the series. Yes, lots of other characters have amazing character arcs, but I don't think any of them are on the level of Kakashi's. This is because Kakashi has one of the most up and down story arcs in the entire series, and at every point in that character arc, he seems to be as sound as he could possibly be. But then there is something that comes along and shakes the foundations of his belief systems, which eventually leads to him being the shinobi that we later see him become. Kakashi has arguably one of the most tragic backstories in the series, and a lot of this shaped who he became later on. He starts out as this wide-eyed, proud kid who just wants to be like his dad, who is one of the most powerful characters in the entire world. But after his father takes his own life, we see a massive character shift for Kakashi. Kakashi blames breaking the rules as the reason why his father took his own life, because his father broke the rules in order to save his comrades, but this ended up leading to a failed mission, and people in the village looked down on his father because of this. So Kakashi internalized this as a 3, 4, 5-year-old kid, and developed a new personality trait of beating people over the head with the rulebooks, being arrogant and brash, and seeing people who don't see the rules as the law of the land above all else as beneath him. Then he has his fateful interaction with Obito, where Obito, in order to go back and save Rin, convinces Kakashi to do the same by telling him that those who break the rules are scum, but those who abandon their comrades are worse than scum. Telling Kakashi that he believed that the White Fang of the Leaf, Kakashi's father, was a hero, and that he made the right choice. This causes turmoil in Kakashi, and he doesn't go immediately, but eventually his heart changes for the better, and he goes back to save his comrades. But he then experiences yet another traumatic event that shakes him to his core yet again: Obito's death. Now, Obito leaves behind his Sharingan for Kakashi to use so that he can see the world through his eyes, and Kakashi uses this trauma and this opportunity of gaining the Sharingan to try and live a life that Obito can be proud of, turning away from his previous brash, arrogant, and rule-bound personality to a life of relying on comrades, swearing to protect Rin with his life. But that is what leads to his next character change. As we all know, Kakashi ends up being responsible for the death of Rin. Even though she sacrificed herself by jumping in front of his Chidori, he blames himself for driving his arm through her heart. He believes that he failed Obito, he believes he failed Rin, and that he failed himself. And this leads to him spiraling into a deep, dark depression that is highlighted throughout the series. And this is one of the most humanizing things that we get from any of the characters in the show. Trauma affects every character in the show pretty much, but no more so than it does Kakashi. As we watch him grow up throughout the flashbacks, we get to see this transformation of Kakashi, and one of the highlights is this depressive period. He doesn't want to train, he doesn't want to eat. We even get in the anime a heart-wrenching scene of him attempting to wash blood off of his hands that's not there. He does the same thing every day, going about his duties, cooking fish the same way, everything just in a monotonous, depressed, dull fashion. And this eventually leads to his teacher saving him from himself. But I don't want to skip over this too soon. I know all of us have been through a time in our lives where we felt like nothing mattered, like we were going through a time and a tumultuous period where anything that we did would just backfire, that we weren't enough, that maybe we were causing damage to those around us, and Kakashi experienced this in the series in real time. So I believe that this key character arc for Kakashi is one of the most humanizing and beautifully tragic things that we get to see in the series, because it's something that we can all relate to on some level. But then, like I said, Minato steps in to try to save him from himself, as we have all experienced somebody in our lives trying to save us from ourselves. And like we so often experience, it's not really what's best for him. Minato gives him something to take his mind off of the tragedies that he has just faced. As a young child dealing with the deaths of his best friend, one of them at his own hand, Minato knows that Kakashi is just going to continue to spiral if he doesn't give him something to do. So he puts him in the Anbu, which ultimately ends up backfiring. Kakashi struggles at first in the Anbu to do the things he needs to do, but eventually he settles in. But not in the way that you would want him to. He settles into being cold-blooded Kakashi, not really caring for the lives of those around him. He becomes a solo lone wolf type character that just focuses on the mission, getting the mission completed, and he doesn't worry about anything else. He begins to lose his soul, and Minato sees this as well. So eventually, in another attempt to pull him out of this darkness, Minato puts him in charge of protecting Kushina and their unborn son, Naruto. The light begins to return to Kakashi's heart and mind. He begins to find a newfound purpose that takes him out of the darkness and pulls him into the light. He begins to hope again, which was exactly what Minato wanted. But that eventually backfires as well, with the death of both Minato and Kushina, the woman with child that he was sworn to protect. So Kakashi dives deeper and deeper into the darkness. You have to imagine at this point in a 14-year-old kid's life, he sees the death of every single person that he loves, every single person that he cares about, and every single person that he's been put in charge of protecting, aside from the infant Naruto, falling away at the hands of either himself or others that he just couldn't stop. And although he is incredibly powerful, and by this point in his life he is considered a war hero, Kakashi is struggling with the idea that he can never be who he needs to be. So he goes back into the Anbu and continues fulfilling duties as an Anbu member up until he's at least 20 years old. And it's at this point Kakashi has sort of forsaken the idea of being a leader. He goes back to being a lone wolf even though he becomes a captain over the Anbu teams. I believe that Kakashi has developed the belief that if he meddles too much in the lives of other people, that they're just going to end up dead, and that things are going to just go worse. So when he notices the darkness within Itachi, he decides to have a hands-off approach. He has a few conversations with him, trying to liven things up, but never gets too close to the situation because he's afraid that if he does, things will go wrong. But because he doesn't, things do go wrong. Obviously, the Uchiha Massacre comes around, and Itachi never felt like he could talk to Kakashi about the things that were going on, because Kakashi never developed a relationship with him that he probably should, and this is something that Kakashi eventually leans into later on in the series, understanding that he failed Itachi, just like he failed, in his mind, Obito, Minato, Kushina, and Rin. All of this leads to Kakashi going back to the ideas that Obito left him with, of camaraderie, teamwork, and friendship being above all else. And he eventually becomes the Genin leader of Team 7 after failing numerous teams in order to establish the idea of these values in the next generation of shinobi. Because he believes after what happens with Itachi that Obito was correct, and that even though all of these tragedies happened, it wasn't because he was wrong, it was just because bad things happen. And he saw firsthand that had he implemented these ideas into somebody like Itachi and been there for him as a comrade, that maybe these things wouldn't have happened. So he makes it his life mission to make sure that anybody who lacks those ideals does not make it as a shinobi in Konoha, doing his best to protect Konoha from these ideals that are counter to the ones he knows now to be true. And it's through all of this that we get the humanization of Kakashi Hatake, a significant aspect that distinguishes him as, in my opinion, the best written character in Naruto is his humanizing qualities. Despite being a highly skilled shinobi, Kakashi is portrayed as somebody who has gone through tragedy that's made him stronger and allowed for him to see these lessons that are true in his life come to fruition and carry them on in his life. But while he is portrayed to be powerful, because of these lessons, he does rely on comrades and rely on those around him. So he is painted as an individual who is super strong, although not invincible or infallible, but somebody who relies on not only his own strength, but the strength of those around him. The narrative exposes his vulnerabilities, fears, and moments of self-doubt, making him a super relatable character to the audience. By showcasing his flaws and internal struggles, the character becomes more three-dimensional and realistic than a lot of other characters in shonen. After taking over Team 7 through various encounters and missions, Kakashi confronts these traumas he's faced and insecurities about those traumas and his capabilities head on. The narrative allows him to face his past and seek closure, which contributes to his growth as a character. This exploration of his emotional journey adds depth and complexity to his personality, making him more than just a skilled warrior. We see in the war arc, whenever he confronts Obito, that all of these past failures come to fruition, that he gets to see that his friend, his best friend, that sacrificed his life for him, has now not only essentially returned from the dead, but he's also responsible for the death of their sensei, for the death of Naruto's mother who he was tasked with protecting, and for the death of hundreds or thousands of shinobi and citizens around the world. That Obito has abandoned the values that Kakashi holds on to from the previous Obito, and this rocks Kakashi to his core. But then he gets to see Naruto live out these values in a way that validates them, validates the way that he has believed for so long, and inspiring him to face off against the person he considered to be his best friend, the person who instilled these values in him in the first place. So this takes Kakashi from somebody who throughout the series has went back and forth on these, facing trauma after trauma, shaking his foundational beliefs again and again, to somebody who holds true to them, despite looking the person in the face who taught them to him as he falls away from that belief system altogether. But then when Obito eventually comes to the side of Naruto and Kakashi, that also allows for Kakashi to see this development come full circle. He experiences trauma after trauma, shaking his foundational beliefs, and that parallels with what happens to Obito, except Obito eventually falls on the wrong side of things and Kakashi eventually falls on the right side of things. But by the time that their ideas culminate in Naruto becoming who he becomes, they eventually both come to the same side and the same realization that the values that they were taught early on about camaraderie and teamwork are the ones that they should rely on. So you could argue that Kakashi's story arc and his interactions with not only the main cast in Naruto, Sasuke, and Sakura, but also the supplementary cast in people like Obito, Guy, Minato, etc., is what actually shapes the story. It's what shapes the development of the characters that he interacts with, and they are the ones that shape the development of the other characters that they interact with the beliefs that Kakashi has eventually settled on through his life of trauma and self-discovery. These relationships not only push the narrative forward and show us the values that are developed in other characters around him by his direct interaction, but it also explores the roles of Kakashi as a mentor, a friend, a student, and somebody who not only develops throughout all of these traumas as a fierce warrior, but also as somebody still capable of empathy and compassion, despite the fact that they have experienced more loss and more trauma than arguably anyone else in the series. It's truly a relatable and inspiring story of somebody who has overcome more than any of us could ever imagine. You see, Kakashi's story is incredibly inspiring because we all can agree that he had every right to become evil. You could say that he arguably had more of a right to become evil than somebody like Sasuke did because of the continuous traumas that he faced. I mean, let's be real. Kakashi has as good a reason as anybody in the Naruto series to become evil. You compare his traumas and the things that he's been through against anyone else, and I promise you, it'll be difficult to find somebody, if anybody, who has faced more trauma than he has, and yet he becomes a good person, not only because of his own merits, leaning on the values that he truly believes in, but also because of the people around him. So we get to see in Kakashi's character not only the impact he has on those around him and his unique, interesting, and enigmatic personality in its fullest, we also get to see the reality of those around us making an impact on us in our lives. So Kakashi's life is not only a journey of self-discovery and a journey of overcoming mental illness and pain and trauma to become the person that he's created to be, but also one that can inspire those in the real world to take on the challenges that they face and become a better person from them, not a worse one. In conclusion, Kakashi stands as the best written character in Naruto, in my opinion, due to the exceptional narrative techniques employed to develop his personality. From the mysterious prodigy to the mentor and teacher, and finally to the burdened leader seeking redemption, Kakashi's journey offers a compelling narrative arc that captivates the audience every step of the way. By humanizing him, showcasing his vulnerabilities and growth, and portraying his complex relationships, the character of Kakashi Hatake emerges as a multifaceted and related individual. This portrayal not only enriches the Naruto story as a whole, but also imparts valuable lessons about personal growth, resilience, and the power of redemption. He's a prime example of how we can handle the traumas in our lives, how we can deal with mental illness, and how we can rely on our loved ones to lift us up in our time of need. Through the journey Kakashi has in Naruto, he shows us how we can become better people through the things that we face. How not one event, or 2 or 3 or 4, can define us as a person if we choose to define ourselves. And all of this leads me to believe that Kakashi Hatake is the best written character in the Naruto series. If you guys made it this far, I just want to say thank you for watching all the way to the end. I greatly appreciate it. Also, if you like this style of video, make sure to let me know in the comments, and also hit that like button, subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you never miss out when new content drops. But thank you so much again for watching all the way to the end. Have an awesome day.